Welcome back to NatChat. My name is BonnieHutt and our guest today is StewartCoffee. And before the break, we were just talking about the connection between how food affects your, basically everything, and your mind, spirit, emotions. So, Stewart, can you just elaborate and just continue a bit more about that connection?
Yeah, Bonnie. What I discovered through my research, because at one point when I was working in the agriculture, I got involved with a company that was actually brewing specific strains of microbes to perform different roles. For example, like when a farmer wanted to compost, plant matter after he'd harvested, to put it back into the soil, we'd give him some composting microbes. Or if he wanted to fix more nitrogen, one of the main nutrients. So I got to access a lot of information to do with microbes, but this particular company also specialised in microbes for human health. We're talking like the probiotic type that most people are aware of. Basically, this led me on a journey of research to do with precisely what it is that a lot of these microbes are doing. And what really blew me away is, because I had an interest with with health, I learnt that in our stomach, that 1.5 kilogram of microbes that we contain, being more than 1 trillion microbes, I wanted to know, well, hey, they're living entities.
Yeah.
They're doing something. What are they doing in there? What are they performing? And they know of they've identified more than 400 species in our intestine. So I thought, well, hey, there's something pretty significant here. I mean, we hear about health and nutrition, but we don't hear a lot about microbes. Now, if we've got between 1.5 and 2 kilograms of them, what's really going on in there? Now, what I understand is that microbes are in fact the fastest replicating life form on Earth.
Okay.
If given an ideal environment, microbes, if they're given enough food, can replicate to something the size of this planet in only a matter of hours. That's in an ideal situation. So microbes are a very incredible form of life.
So they're the same thing as germs?
Yeah, well, see, basically what you've got is nature's ratio of natural balance. So, for example, if you've got a healthy soil, normally the way the ratios of beneficial bacteria versus potentially pathogenic bacteria which coexist together is about 85% beneficial varieties, 15% potentially pathogenic, but they're actually kept in check because of what's called competitive exclusion. Now, if the soil becomes denatured or affected, whether it be by chemicals or poor farming practices, the ratios of beneficial can deplete.
The beneficial bacteria,
Hence the reason for the benefits of sustainable farming practices. Now, in the stomach, it's the same. So, in other words, what we want to be doing is proliferating as much of the good varieties of bacteria in our stomach as possible to limit the proliferation of the potential pathogenic bacteria. And the best way to do this is through natural foods, living foods.
And seawater?
Minerals is another key. It's very important. Microbes are actually responsible for how the very first form of nutrient becomes available to a plant. If you go right back to the beginning of the soil food web, that's referred to by Elaine Ingham, who studies soil microbe. She's a microbiologist who works with agriculture, has dedicated her science, her studies to the soil food web of both microbes and fungi. Basically, minerals contain locked nutrient, which is the beginning of the soil fertility cycle. And that's stored in the particles of rock dust. So in the earth, we're talking microscopic particles of rock fragments. Many of these rock particles are known to have high, what's called paramagnetic frequencies, which was discovered by Professor Callahan in the United States, you can actually measure these frequencies. So they have a frequency around them. Well, microbes.
And this goes into the food, of course.
Well, microbes are attached to these rock particle dusts, and they excrete an organic acid which solubilizes the stored locked mineral and makes it soluble and available to the plant root hairs. Which
affects the frequency of the plant, which again affects our frequency.
The condition of the soil, healthy soil has a frequency. You can measure this in radionics or paramagnetics, particularly fertile soil. For example, what science has now correlated an association between the humus, which is a part of it's the workhorse molecule of soil from the remnant process of composting, and all the microbes that exist within that biomass in the top 17 to 30 centimetres, say, of a rainforest, for example. It actually emits a frequency which is conducive to seeding cloud. Hence rainforest, you've got a lot of leaf litter, a lot of humus, and you've got a lot of cloud formation. What people don't realise is once you clear that rainforest, the erosion washes away that humus, that biomass, and there can be as much as 20, 30, even 40 tonne of living microbe biomass per acre.
So rainfall is affected by the microbes, in essence.
Yeah, the microbes within that biomass on that living forest floor influences weather.
Okay, so in other words, it's not just the soil's not just affecting us, it's affecting the whole, our environment, our bodies, everything.
Microbes are essential for life.
Because everything's holistic. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you plant plants, you also need to consider what's happening below the ground. That's why it's very important to mulch. That's why worms are a very important part of it. Because what a worm does is a worm actually comes along, they inoculate the soil with microbes. They turn the compost into a biological rich substance.
All right. Thank you for watching NatChat. We're going to a break now. And then after the break, we'll hear a bit more from StewartCoffee.